The scent of betrayal hung in the air, thick as the summer humidity. I stood frozen, my hand clutching the steering wheel, as I watched my husband Max step out of the unfamiliar red sedan. A woman with long, dark hair emerged from the passenger side, her laughter carrying across the parking lot. "This can't be happening," I whispered to myself, my heart pounding in my chest. Max leaned in, kissing the woman on the cheek before they parted ways. I ducked down in my seat, praying he wouldn't notice me as he walked towards his own car. As soon as Max drove away, I started my engine and followed the red sedan. My mind raced with questions, each one more painful than the last. Who was she? How long had this been going on? I trailed the car to a modest apartment complex across town. The woman, still oblivious to my presence, disappeared inside. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed my best friend, Alice. "Emma, what's wrong?" Alice's concerned voice came through the speaker. "I think Max is cheating on me," I blurted out, my voice cracking. "Oh, honey, where are you?" I gave her the address, and within minutes, Alice's familiar blue hatchback pulled up beside me. "Get in," she said, her face a mask of determination. "You shouldn't be alone right now." As we drove back to my house, I recounted what I'd seen. Alice listened intently, her grip on the steering wheel tightening with each detail. "That bastard!" she muttered. "Emma, you need to confront him." I shook my head. "I can't. What if I'm wrong? What if there's an explanation?" Alice pulled into my driveway and turned to face me. "Sweetie, you saw what you saw. Don't let him gaslight you." Just then, Max's car turned onto our street. Alice squeezed my hand. "You've got this. Call me later, okay?" I nodded, climbing out of her car just as Max pulled up. He looked surprised to see me home early. "Hey, Em, everything okay?" he asked, his brow furrowed in what seemed like genuine concern. I took a deep breath. "We need to talk, Max." Inside, I paced the living room, while Max sat on the couch, watching me with growing unease. "Where were you this afternoon?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "At work, like always. Why?" The lie hit me like a physical blow. "Don't. I saw you, Max, with her." His face paled. "Emma, I can explain." "Explain what?" I snapped. "How you were kissing another woman? How you've been lying to me?" Max stood up, reaching for me. "It's not what you think. Carol's just a friend." "Carol?" I repeated, the name tasting bitter on my tongue. "So she has a name." "Emma, please, let me explain." The doorbell interrupted us. I moved to answer it, grateful for the distraction. As I opened the door, I found myself face to face with a woman I'd never seen before. She was older, probably in her late 50s, with graying hair and sharp eyes that seemed to look right through me. "Mrs. Reynolds?" she asked. I nodded, confused. "I'm Daisy Reynolds, Max's mother," she said, her voice clipped. "I think it's time we had a little chat about my son." I glanced back at Max, who looked like he'd seen a ghost. As I stepped aside to let Daisy in, I realized that my world was about to be turned upside down even more than I'd thought possible. The tension in the room was palpable as Daisy strode in, her eyes darting between Max and me. Whatever she had come to say, I had a feeling it would change everything. And as I closed the door behind her, I couldn't shake the sinking feeling that my once blissful marriage was about to crumble before my eyes. The days following Daisy's unexpected visit were a blur of tension and unspoken accusations. Max had managed to deflect his mother's concerns, but her words lingered in the air like a toxic fog. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than I knew. One morning, as I was getting ready for my shift at the hospital, I noticed Max's phone buzzing on the nightstand. He was in the shower, and curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up, my heart racing as I saw the name Carol flash across the screen. Before I could think twice, I unlocked his phone. He'd never changed the passcode from my birthday. What I saw made my blood run cold. Dozens of messages, each more intimate than the last, scrolled before my eyes. "I miss you." One read, "Can't wait to see you again," said another. I heard the shower turn off and quickly put the phone back, my hands shaking. "Everything okay, Em?" Max asked as he came out, towel around his waist. I forced a smile. "Fine, just running late." At work, I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying those messages, imagining Max with Carol. During my lunch break, I called Alice. "I need your help," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "What's wrong?" Alice's concern was palpable. I saw messages on Max's phone. From her. From Carol. Alice's sharp intake of breath told me everything. Oh, Emma, I'm so sorry. What do I do, Alice? I can't confront him without admitting I snooped. You need proof, Alice said firmly. Concrete evidence. Can you check his call logs? That night, I waited until Max was asleep before carefully examining his phone again. The call logs were a damning testament to his betrayal, daily calls to Carol, often lasting hours. Over the next week, I became a detective in my own home. I noted Max's late nights at the office, his sudden work trips, the way he guarded his phone. Each discovery was a knife to my heart, but I needed to be sure. Then came the night that changed everything. Max said he had a late meeting, but something in his voice made me suspicious. I followed him, my heart pounding as I trailed his car across town. He pulled up to a small Italian restaurant, and there she was, Carol, waiting outside. I watched as they embraced, kissed, and went inside, oblivious to my presence. Through the window, I could see them laughing, holding hands across the table. The intimacy of it all made me sick to my stomach. I took out my phone with trembling hands and snapped a few pictures, tears blurring my vision. As I sat in my car staring at the evidence of my husband's betrayal, my phone buzzed. It was Alice. Emma, where are you? I stopped by your house and you weren't there. I couldn't hold back the sobs any longer. He's with her, Alice. I'm watching them right now. Oh, honey, stay where you are. I'm coming to get you. Alice arrived within minutes, her face a mask of concern and anger. She climbed into my car, wrapping me in a fierce hug. What do you want to do? She asked gently. I took a deep breath, wiping away my tears. I want to confront him, tonight. Alice nodded, her eyes steely with determination. Then that's what we'll do. You're not alone in this, Emma. As we drove home, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The pain was still there, raw and throbbing, but now it was mixed with something else, resolve. We pulled into my driveway just as Max's car turned onto our street. Alice squeezed my hand. Remember, you have nothing to be ashamed of. He's the one who broke your trust. I nodded, stepping out of the car. As Max approached, his face registered surprise, then alarm at the sight of Alice and my tear-stained face. Emma? What's going on? He asked, his voice wavering. I met his gaze, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. We need to talk, Max, about Carol. The color drained from his face, and I knew in that moment that everything was about to change. The life I thought I knew was crumbling around me. But as I stood there, with Alice by my side and the truth finally out in the open, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't expected. Hope. The confrontation with Max left me emotionally drained, but it didn't provide the closure I'd hoped for. He'd apologized, promised to end things with Carol, and begged for another chance. I wanted to believe him, but the trust was shattered. A week later, I found myself sitting in my car, outside Max's office, my heart pounding. He'd told me he was working late, but something in his voice had set off alarm bells. You don't have to do this. Alice's voice crackled through my phone's speaker. I took a deep breath. I need to know, Alice. I can't live with the uncertainty anymore. As if on cue, Max emerged from the building. He wasn't alone. Carol was by his side, her hand on his arm. They walked to his car, laughing and talking intimately. My hands shook as I fumbled for my phone, snapping pictures as they got into Max's car and drove away. I followed at a distance, my mind racing. They pulled into the parking lot of the Grand Hotel downtown. I watched as they walked inside, Max's hand on the small of Carol's back. Alice, I choked out, they're at a hotel. Oh, Emma? Alice's voice was filled with sympathy and anger. Do you want me to come get you? No, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. I need to see this through. I waited in the lobby, my heart in my throat, for nearly 2 hours. When Max and Carol finally emerged, they were disheveled and giddy, oblivious to my presence. I stepped out from behind a large potted plant, my phone raised. Smile for the camera, lovebirds. The flash went off, capturing their shocked expressions perfectly. Emma! Max's face drained of color. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, I replied, my voice ice-cold. But I think the answer's pretty obvious, isn't it? Carol had the decency to look ashamed, but Max's expression quickly morphed from shock to anger. You followed me, he hissed. What gives you the right? What gives me the right? I cut him off, my voice rising. I'm your wife, Max, or have you forgotten that little detail while you've been busy screwing around? People in the lobby were starting to stare, but I didn't care. Years of pent-up frustration and hurt came pouring out. I trusted you, I continued, tears streaming down my face. I believed you when you said you'd end it. How could you do this to me, to us? Max reached for me, his face a mask of regret. Emma, please, let's not do this here. We can talk about this at home. I stepped back out of his reach. There's nothing left to talk about, Max. We're done. I turned to Carol, who looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. He's all yours. I hope you're happy together. As I walked away, Max called after me, but I didn't turn back. My phone buzzed with a text from Alice. Do you need me? Yes, I replied, my vision blurry with tears. Can you meet me at home? I don't think I should be alone right now. By the time I got home, Alice was already there, waiting on my porch with a bottle of wine and a fierce, protective look in her eyes. Oh, honey, she said, pulling me into a hug as soon as I stepped out of the car. I'm so sorry. We sat on the porch swing, passing the bottle back and forth as I recounted what had happened. As I talked, I felt something shift inside me. The pain was still there, raw and throbbing, but alongside it was a new feeling. Determination. What are you going to do now? Alice asked gently. I took a deep breath, looking out at the neighborhood I'd called home for so long. I'm going to file for divorce, I said, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating. And then I'm going to start over. Alice squeezed my hand. Whatever you need, I'm here. As we sat there, the sun setting on my old life, I felt a strange mix of grief and hope. The road ahead would be hard, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally taking control of my own story. The morning after my confrontation with Max at the hotel, I woke up with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in months. Alice's words from the night before echoed in my mind. You need to protect yourself, Emma, legally and emotionally. I called in sick to work and spent the morning researching divorce lawyers. By noon, I had an appointment scheduled with Patricia Lawson, a highly recommended attorney known for her no-nonsense approach. As I was about to leave for the appointment, the doorbell rang. My heart sank when I saw Daisy, Max's mother, standing on the porch. Emma, she said, her voice uncharacteristically soft, we need to talk. I hesitated, then stepped aside to let her in. Daisy had never been my biggest fan, and I braced myself for an onslaught of accusations. To my surprise, she sat down on the couch and looked at me with tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Emma. I had no idea Max was capable of this. I felt my defenses crumbling. You believe me? Daisy nodded, pulling an envelope from her purse. I found these in Max's old room at our house. I think you should see them. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Max with Carol, dating back years. My world tilted on its axis as I realized the depth of his betrayal. How long? I whispered. Based on the dates, at least 5 years, Daisy replied, her voice heavy with regret. 5 years, half of our marriage. I felt like I was going to be sick. I confronted Max, Daisy continued. He tried to lie at first, but, well, the evidence was irrefutable. Emma, I want you to know that I'm on your side in this. Whatever you need, I'm here. I looked at her, stunned by this unexpected alliance. Thank you, Daisy. That means more than you know. After Daisy left, I called Alice in a daze. Can you come with me to see the lawyer? I asked. I don't think I can do this alone. Alice arrived just in time, and we drove to Patricia Lawson's office together. As I recounted my story to the lawyer, showing her the photographs Daisy had provided, I felt a strange mix of pain and relief. Mrs. Morrison, Patricia said, her voice firm but kind, based on what you've told me, you have a very strong case for divorce. But I need to ask, are you sure this is what you want? I took a deep breath, feeling Alice's supportive hand on my arm. Yes, I said, surprised by the strength in my voice. I'm sure. As we left the lawyer's office, my phone buzzed with a text from Max. We need to talk. Please come home. I showed Alice the message, my hands shaking. What should I do? Alice's eyes flashed with protective anger. You don't owe him anything, Emma, but if you want closure, maybe this is your chance. I nodded, feeling a surge of determination. Will you come with me? Of course, Alice replied. I'll be right there with you. As we drove to the house I once shared with Max, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Whatever happened next, I knew I wasn't alone. Max was waiting on the porch when we arrived. His face fell when he saw Alice, but I cut him off before he could protest. Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of Alice, I said firmly. Max's shoulders slumped in defeat. Emma, I'm so sorry. I know I've hurt you beyond forgiveness, but please, can we try to work this out? I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in months. The man I had loved, the life we had built together, it all seemed like a distant dream now. No, Max, I said, my voice steady. We can't. I've spoken to a lawyer. I want a divorce. The words hung in the air between us, final and irrevocable. As I watched the reality of our situation sink into Max's face, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. This wasn't the end I had ever imagined for us, but standing there with Alice by my side and the truth finally out in the open, I knew it was the beginning of something new. A life that was truly my own. The day I decided to leave, Max dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the turmoil raging inside me. Alice had helped me pack my essentials the night before, and now we stood in the living room, surrounded by boxes and memories. Are you sure about this, Emma? Alice asked, her eyes filled with concern. I nodded, my throat tight. I have to do this, for myself. Just then, the front door opened, and Max walked in. He froze when he saw the boxes, his face a mask of confusion and fear. Emma? What's going on? He asked, his voice trembling. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. I'm leaving, Max. I can't do this anymore. His face crumpled. But we can work this out. I promise I'll change. It's too late. I cut him off, my voice surprisingly steady. I know about Carol. I know it's been going on for years. Max's face drained of color. How did you? It doesn't matter how I know, I said, fighting back tears. What matters is that you've been lying to me for half of our marriage. As the reality of the situation sank in, Max's demeanor changed. His eyes hardened, and a cruel smirk twisted his lips. Fine, he spat, if that's how you want it. But don't think you're going to take me for everything I'm worth. I've got friends in high places, Emma. You'll be lucky if you walk away with anything. His words hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't the man I'd married. The man I'd loved for so long. It was like looking at a stranger. Alice stepped forward, her voice cold. I think you should leave, Max. Now. He glared at her, then at me. This isn't over, he growled before storming out, slamming the door behind him. As soon as he was gone, my knees gave out. Alice caught me, guiding me to the couch. Oh, Emma, she murmured, holding me as I sobbed. I'm so sorry. When I finally calmed down, I looked up at Alice, a new determination in my eyes. I need to talk to Carol. Alice's eyes widened. Are you sure that's a good idea? I nodded. I need answers, and I need her to know what she's getting into. It took some digging, but we managed to find Carol's address. My heart pounded as we pulled up to her apartment building. Do you want me to come with you? Alice asked. I shook my head. No, I need to do this alone. Carol's face when she opened the door was a mix of shock and guilt. Emma, what are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, pushing past her into the apartment. For the next hour, I laid everything out. The years of deception, the pain, the betrayal. To my surprise, Carol listened, her face growing more horrified with each revelation. I had no idea, she whispered when I finished. He told me you were separated, that you were cruel and cold. I'm so sorry, Emma. Her words should have brought me comfort, but instead they just made me feel hollow. He's all yours now, I said, standing to leave. But be careful. The Max you think you know, he doesn't exist. As I walked out of Carol's apartment, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Max. I'm sorry. Please come home. We can fix this. I stared at the screen, a war raging inside me. Part of me wanted to believe him, to go back to the life I thought we had, but the larger part, the part that had been growing stronger with each revelation, knew there was no going back. With shaking hands, I typed out my response, No, Max, we can't. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce proceedings. As I hit send, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would be hard, but for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally on the right path. I looked up at the sky, taking a deep breath of the crisp autumn air. It was time to start my new life, on my own terms. The hospital corridors felt different that morning. Whispers followed me, and colleagues averted their eyes. I tried to focus on my work, but an undercurrent of tension made it impossible. As I was changing an IV bag, Carol's voice cut through the air like a knife. Emma Morrison! I turned to see her storming towards me, her face contorted with rage. Patients and staff alike stopped to stare. Can I help you? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. You ruined everything, Carol shrieked. Max lost his job because of you. My heart raced. What are you talking about? Carol's laugh was bitter. Don't play innocent. You told his office about us, didn't you? They fired him this morning. I felt the blood drain from my face. I didn't tell anyone. Liar. Carol lunged at me, her nails raking across my cheek. Everything happened in a blur. Security guards appeared, restraining Carol as she continued to scream accusations. My supervisor, Dr. Patel, pulled me aside. Emma, what's going on? She asked, her eyes filled with concern. I opened my mouth to explain, but the words wouldn't come. How could I possibly untangle this mess? Dr. Patel sighed. I think you should go home, Emma. Take a few days off. But my patients... We'll cover your shifts, she said firmly. This situation, it's become a distraction. We need to sort this out before you can return. I felt like I was drowning. Am I being fired? No, not fired, but suspended, pending an investigation. I'm sorry, Emma. I stumbled out of the hospital in a daze. My phone buzzed incessantly, missed calls from Max, texts from Alice asking if I was okay. I ignored them all. When I got home, I found Max waiting on the porch. His eyes were red-rimmed, his clothes disheveled. What have you done, Emma? He asked, his voice breaking. I pushed past him into the house. I didn't do anything, Max. This is all you're doing. He followed me inside. My doing? You're the one who told my office about the affair. They fired me, Emma. My career is ruined. I never told your office anything. I shot back. Maybe you should ask your girlfriend about that. Max's face crumpled. Carol? She wouldn't. Wouldn't she? She showed up at my work today, Max. She attacked me in front of everyone. I've been suspended. The reality of the situation hit us both like a tidal wave. We stood there, two people who had once promised to love each other forever, now reduced to this. What are we going to do? Max whispered. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but exhaustion. There is no we anymore, Max. You need to leave. As if on cue, my phone rang. It was Alice. Emma, are you okay? I heard what happened at the hospital. I felt the last of my composure crumble. Alice, I don't know what to do. Everything's falling apart. I'm coming over, she said firmly. Don't do anything until I get there. I hung up and turned to Max. You need to be gone by the time Alice arrives. He nodded, defeated. As he walked out the door, he paused. I'm sorry, Emma, for everything. I couldn't bring myself to respond. I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. In the span of a few hours, I'd lost my job, been publicly humiliated, and watched the last vestiges of my marriage crumble to dust. As I sat there waiting for Alice, I felt something shift inside me. The pain was still there, raw and throbbing, but alongside it was a new feeling, a fierce determination. I'd hit rock bottom, but I refused to stay there. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. I was done being a victim. It was time to take control of my life, no matter the cost. The days following the hospital incident blurred together in a haze of anxiety and sleepless nights. I was trapped in my own home, afraid to face the world outside. Alice had become my lifeline, bringing groceries and updates from the outside world. It was Alice who brought me the news that would change everything. Emma, she said, her voice gentle but urgent. You need to see this. She handed me her tablet, open to a local news site. The headline made my blood run cold. Local executive fired over affair scandal. Wife accused of sabotage. As I read the article, my hands began to shake. It detailed Max's firing, painting me as a vengeful wife who had orchestrated his downfall. Worse still, it mentioned my suspension from the hospital, implying I was unstable and potentially dangerous. This is insane, I whispered. How can they print this? Alice's eyes flashed with anger. It gets worse. Look at the comments. I scrolled down, feeling sick as I read the vitriol directed at me. Strangers calling me a liar, a cheat, a homewrecker. My reputation was being shredded before my eyes. Just then, my phone rang. It was Dr. Patel from the hospital. Emma, she said, her voice strained. I'm sorry, but given the recent publicity, we're going to have to let you go. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. But I didn't do anything wrong, I protested weakly. I know, but the board feels your presence would be disruptive. I'm truly sorry. As I hung up, feeling numb, Alice squeezed my hand. We're not going to let them get away with this, she said firmly. It's time to fight back. With Alice's encouragement, I made an appointment with Patricia Lawson, the divorce lawyer. As we sat in her office, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Mrs. Morrison, Patricia said, her eyes sharp. Based on what you've told me, we have a strong case for defamation. But I need to know, are you prepared for what comes next? This could get ugly. I took a deep breath, thinking of everything I'd lost, my marriage, my job, my reputation. I'm ready, I said, surprised by the steel in my voice. I want my life back. Patricia nodded, a hint of a smile on her face. Then let's get to work. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal documents and strategy sessions. We filed for divorce, citing Max's infidelity, and prepared a countersuit against the newspaper for defamation. Just as I was starting to feel like I was regaining control, the final blow came. I was leaving Patricia's office when I saw them, Max and Carol, walking hand in hand down the street. They looked happy, carefree, as if the chaos they'd caused didn't matter at all. Something inside me snapped. Before I knew what I was doing, I was marching towards them. How dare you? I hissed, my voice shaking with rage. How dare you act like nothing's wrong when you've ruined my life? Max's face paled. Emma, Save it, I cut him off. I don't want to hear your excuses. I want you to know that I'm done being your victim. I'm going to fight, and I'm going to win. Carol sneered. Good luck with that. Who's going to believe you over Max? I felt a surge of determination. The truth will come out, I said, my voice steady. And when it does, you'll both regret ever crossing me. As I walked away, leaving them stunned on the sidewalk, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. I had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in months, I felt truly alive. Back at home, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by legal papers and newspaper clippings. My hands shook as I picked up my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found the number I needed. It was time to call in reinforcements, time to tell my story, on my terms. As the phone rang, I took a deep breath. This was it, the point of no return. Whatever happened next would define the rest of my life. Hello? A familiar voice answered. Daisy, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. It's Emma. We need to talk. The courtroom fell silent as I took the stand. My hands trembled slightly, but my voice remained steady as I recounted the painful journey of the past few months. Max's betrayal, Carol's vindictive actions, the loss of my job and reputation. I laid it all bare. As I spoke, I caught sight of Daisy in the audience. Her face, once so judgmental, now showed a mix of sorrow and support. Our conversation weeks ago had changed everything. He's my son, she had said, but what he did to you was unforgivable. I'll testify on your behalf. Her testimony, along with the evidence we'd gathered, had been damning. Now, as I finished my statement, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The judge's verdict came swiftly. The defamation case against the newspaper was successful, and Max was ordered to pay substantial alimony. But more importantly, my name was cleared. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed around us. Alice, ever protective, shielded me from their questions. But I paused, realizing this was my chance to reclaim my narrative. I want to make a statement, I said, my voice stronger than I'd expected. Facing the cameras, I took a deep breath. To anyone who's ever felt powerless in the face of betrayal, I want you to know, you're not alone. Your truth matters. Don't let anyone silence you. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. With the settlement money, I was able to start fresh. I found a new apartment, applied for nursing positions at different hospitals, and even enrolled in a writing course, something I'd always wanted to do but never had the courage to pursue. One sunny afternoon, as I was unpacking boxes in my new place, there was a knock at the door. It was Daisy, holding a small potted plant. A housewarming gift, she said, a tentative smile on her face, and an apology for everything. I invited her in, surprised by how natural it felt. As we sat drinking tea, Daisy opened up about her own past, a failed marriage, the struggles of single motherhood. For the first time, I saw her not as Max's mother or my former adversary, but as a woman who'd faced her own battles. I'm proud of you, Emma, she said, squeezing my hand. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. As Daisy left, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in months. The pain wasn't gone. I knew it would take time to fully heal, but it no longer defined me. That evening, I sat on my new balcony, watching the sunset. My phone buzzed with a text from Alice. Dinner tomorrow? The whole gang wants to celebrate your fresh start. I smiled, thinking of the supportive circle of friends who'd stood by me through it all. They were my chosen family now, and with them by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came next. As the sky turned from orange to deep purple, I pulled out the journal I'd started keeping. On a fresh page, I began to write. Today marks the beginning of my new chapter. The past few months have been the hardest of my life, but they've also shown me what I'm capable of. I've lost a lot, but I've gained something invaluable. The knowledge that I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to find out. This is my story now, and I'm the one holding the pen. I closed the journal, feeling a sense of anticipation building inside me. Tomorrow was a new day full of possibilities, and I was ready for it. All of it. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, I made a silent promise to myself. No matter what life threw my way, I would face it head-on, with courage and grace. Because now I knew the truth. I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. And that strength, it was just the beginning.